Hey guys, hope you're good. Today I'm with Andy and Mehdi, two guys who made the Video Copilot live opening for Paris and Barcelona. Hey guys.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm fine. It's not a beautiful day in Paris, but I'm fine. And what about you guys?
I don't know. I don't see the light of the day. I always work in the dark, so it don't make much difference for me. There are always curtain on my window, so I don't care about the weather.
Okay, just in a dark room. And what about you, Andy?
It's fine here. It's not that cold, it's not that hot, but
Yeah, Andy is
great.
in Madagascar, so if you saw the Madagascar movie, easily you can have an idea. So guys, today we will talk about some breakdown and making of your projects. Maybe we can start with Mehdi, and
Yeah,
just
sure. So, let me activate the screen share. Yeah, it's good.
yeah, perfect.
Okay, so hello guys. For the people who don't know me, I'm Mehdi Hadi. I'm a French motion designer in Paris. I'm a motion designer for 5 years now, and I'm also a concept artist and a teacher. And yeah, I do all that for roughly 5 years. So I will just, for a quick presentation, show you what I do. So essentially, I'm going to show you just the still images that I usually do. So this is for my kind of personal project and kind of R&D development and research and just try to I don't know, maybe try different style. So this is what I do.
Yeah, Mehdi, just one second. I think you can hide the Google Hangouts little
Ah,
message. Yeah.
thank you. So there's a lot of different type of work. There's UI interface, there's car, hands, and there's the video couple live show. Some project that I'm working on right now. Some R&D about ocean and underwater render.
So you mostly work in 3D, right?
Yeah, mostly, and even when I work with 2D, but it's the 2D of After Effects, it's always in 3D layers. So yeah, I did flat design, really 2D stuff for when I began my career, but now it's mostly 3D. Mostly user interface and concept design and 3D render. So yeah, this is what I do mainly.
Yeah, really nice frames.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I kind of like just doing one image that I can very concentrate on that particular thing and try to render out something cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool because you do a lot of nice still frames, but you made an incredible animated job for the Video Copilot Live, and I'm sure people are excited to see how
Yeah,
you've done this work, you know?
yeah, totally. I'm very glad that so many people enjoy it and came to me, asked me question and congratulate me about this project and inspire some people. So I'm very happy about that. And yeah, I'm very grateful to you guys and Andrew Kramer to let me do this title and yeah, that was a really cool project actually.
Thanks,
So
man.
this is roughly what I do. For just a quick context, I'm going just to show you on what I'm working on and what type of software that I use. Um, Now this is my computer, so this is what I'm working every day. i9 128 gig of RAM just because I'm handling a lot of data, lot of polygon information, so I need to have that kind of RAM and three 1080 Ti because I'm always rendering on a GPU renderer, so Octane render and Redshift. So my rig is made for GPU rendering. And about the software that I use mostly, there's the Xparticle, Reflow, Turbulence FD, Octane, Redshift, obviously. V-Ray, I did V-Ray for maybe a year before I was interested by the GPU renderer. And yeah, when I first tried Octane, I said, well, this is it, no more V-Ray. So this is kind of eye-opening for me. About Adobe, I use mostly Illustrator and After Effects. And for After Effects, I have few plugins that I use. I don't really a big fan of a lot of plugins, but there's some who are really useful. So Video Copilot Live Suites, it's like optical flares and Saber and Element 3D. Red Giant Magic Bullets for just colorimetric. Obviously, Trapcode, Particular, and Sapphire is the same of Red Giant Magic Bullets, always for colorimetric. And the other is just Moid 3D for hard surface modeling. You know, when I have to make something really intricate, really detailed on a hard surface object, I use that software in Fusion 360. Marvel Designer, obviously, Word Machine. Houdini, very little, but sometimes I use that. And for my character, that's 3D.
Yeah,
So this is really
I'm-
what I use every day for my work.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
I see a lot of program, and do you use ZBrush, for example?
Not really. ZBrush, it's an amazing software. I used ZBrush for maybe a month, but the funny thing that happened that every tool that I use in ZBrush, I can use in Cinema 4D.
Okay.
The brush that I use is kind of the same. The only thing that I try to draw me into ZBrush was the Z remesher, because you can subdivide with the brush stroke actually to just maintain a level of detail that is always cool for modeling. But now with the VDB mesher and just the sculpt layout in C4D, that's enough. Actually, I don't need to use ZBrush. Every character that you will find on my page on Instagram or on my site or everywhere else was done in C4D. And so that's it. That's a wrap for my software. And yeah, we can start break down some stuff.
Yeah.
So so I think a lot of you already saw my title for the Video Copilot live show. Everything was done in Cinema 4D with some external software intervention, like the mountain was done in Word Machine. Every piece of rocks of environment was done, not was done, but was grabbed to how do you call it?
From Quixel.
Yes, Quixel Megascan. So I use Quixel Megascan to download the 3D assets and the texture to do my environment. So it's really awesome to use. It's there's a lot of level of details that you can use. The map are incredible. So if you don't know Quixel Megascan, you can try it. It's real awesome to do environmental 3D render, photorealistic, very fast. So yeah, I very encourage everyone to try on and to use it. So for environment, Quixel Megascan was my tool And then for all the little plants and grass and everything, that was CGAxis. I downloaded a pack with some flowers, so some plant, and that is what you see on that shot and that shot and that shot. The hand was bought of 3D scan store. They have an amazing 3D scan of hands. I'm going to show you.
This is your age.
Yeah. Just a reminder because before I forgot. So you can find, hand feet with all the maps, all the details, because I didn't had a lot of time to do this film because I worked
Yeah.
beside doing this film, so I needed to have a lot of map, of asset, very fast and very kind of cool and detailed, and not too expensive, see. But yeah, I grabbed everything from that side, and then I render it out in Octane. So the main difficulty of the project was two things, actually. It was how to make that shape, the what I call the hero. So this is the water shape-shifting shape that move around in the film, and the how to make the growth of the plants kind of interesting, and to animate the hand, and to just make that fluid kind of make it grow to that character that I call the goddess. So I don't think I'm going to have all the time to explain all that, but I'm going to explain some stuff anyway. So let's open C4V. So, I'm going to start with the goddess. Yeah. So yeah. So first of all, I research a lot to have that setup. It took me maybe 20 try to to have the right setup, because I needed something to be very light to render and just to animate. So it's few steps to do, but it's fairly simple. First thing, I had to have my model. So I use a DAS. Sorry. So I used a DAS model. That is very cool because they have an awesome topology.
Yeah.
So you can sculpt on it, and the UVs are already unwrapped. So yeah, it's awesome assets. It's very detailed. You can see the nails. It's all clean, all quads. So yeah, very great. So I used this model, and from that I needed to add some spline, that go around her body. For that, I needed to just emit particles from the bottom of her feet, and just to grow upward into her body, the arm, the head, the hands. So what I do is I had two models, so the full body and the bottom of the feet. So I try to I separate the two of them, and I had an emitter. And for the emitter, I put the feet emission, so this piece of geometry, into the emitter. So my emitter is an object emitter, and it emits from that. So if now I just hit play, I'm going to have that plus some particles. The particle does not move around because I kill the speed. So I just need one straight shot of particles that stay in place. After that, I needed to add a follow surface. Like that, my particles will travel around the body. So I activate that. And then I had the gravity. And the gravity, I kind of invert it because mainly the gravity will pull down every particles, and I just need to pull up. So my particle was minus 50, and then we can see the particle just travel around the body. If I have the body, you can see more. You can see alright, it's kind of little particles. You can see.
Yeah.
When I have that, the only thing I have to do is just to add a XP trail. Like that, we can see the growth of the particles of the spline. So that was my main setup. And from that, when I was happy of the shape of the spline, so this was enough, I just hit C and collapsed it. So it was just now a spline. That was all I needed. So I had that. From that, I just had to create a capsule. You can see.
Yeah.
Had the spline wrap on the capsule, and then with the spline wrap, I can define the start and the end.
Yeah, that's really cool. One simple question: what's the benefits, to use a spline wrap versus the classical spline profile?
The sweep.
Yeah.
The one thing was to the cap. Actually, I just went to have one straight object and was just more simple.
Okay.
Because if I needed to change the shape of the capsule, it was very easy to do that.
Okay.
I know that in the sweep you can change the scale, the radius, and the rotation, but I just need one piece of geometry that it's all that I can control easily.
Yeah,
if I had to make it editable, I can change and maybe extrude the shape or do whatever I want with it.
Yeah, okay.
When I have that basic setup and I have the control on the animation, and you can see it's kind of fast. It's not really a heavy rig to manipulate. And from that, I could use the new volume builder that is in the Air 20. That is awesome. I so enjoy it. I don't know if you guys try it a lot, but it's awesome to use.
Yeah, actually we use it, with Redshift because
Yeah.
now you can create your volume box and set
Yeah.
your volume where you want directly inside of Cinema 4D, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I really enjoy to use that. And I can hide that. And then just a volume builder. So now I have my volume. I'm not too low because 0.5 is just enough. I don't need to have something really defined like that. I just wanted to have something, yeah, kind of fire because I use smoothing on the volume mesher to have a bit more organic shape. So now the volume builder is active. I just put it in the volume mesher, and now I have that. So this is kind of yeah, it's not very clean, and the smoothing will help with that. So just with the smoothing deformer, we can go from that to that. So that was a great problem solver. It's still fast. I can see my animation, and that was it actually for that particular animation. Just for a quick reminder, I just will going to show that.
Yeah, that's pretty fun because it looks really like, you know, a simulation and it's just simple tricks and deformers. So really cool to have this breakdown.
Yeah, because I know that simulation can be a pain and it's not easy to control.
Yeah,
So as much as I can, when I know I have a simulation, I always will try to find my way to trick it.
yeah,
So I'm not constrained by the gravity or the turbulence or the
yeah,
so it's yeah. I always try to find tricky way to do the stuff. So this was the final result. So uh, also from that scene to that scene, a lot of people ask me how you made the transition. It's just two scene. It's just two different scenes.
yeah,
Actually, it's just a cut transition because it would be very complicated to go from that shape to that shape. So it's just two scenes, and you can see the result. So yeah, that was quite fun to do it. So that was my process for the creation of the goddess in this movie. So I hope you learned some stuff.
yeah.
Um,
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
and what I can show you is yeah the growth effect. In my movie, there's a lot of plants that will grow kind of everywhere like that. It's not very tricky. It's a very simple effect. Just the simplest effect you can do. Yeah, so grows everywhere. So basically, this is just a cloner. So let me. So for that effect, so this is just it. You can see
Yeah,
my setup is very not complicated. I'm going to break down anyway. So I have a sphere. On that sphere, I have a shader. You can see. So for that shader, for those who are not very familiar with Cinema 4D, it's just a noise, d'accord? Noise, I'm sorry, with a brightness animated. So we can go from total white to total black with the noise type that you like the most. I just wanted to have kind of a organic growth on an overall shape. So just animate the brightness of the noise with an animation. So I just um, increase the size of the global scale of my noise to a very large pattern because if your pattern is like 100% by default, it will be very small. And I wanted to have something much larger to have kind of nice animation, nice operation on everything. So yeah, 1800 is kind of good. And then everything will be driven by this map, actually. So from that, I use a cloner. I use just a plane. It's a plane with an alpha. Sorry. Yeah, just simple, just for the tutorial, but yeah, that will do the job. My cloner is in object mode onto the sphere, and now I can use my shader effector. So the shader effector is really cool to use because it uses the um,
black.
noise
Yeah,
property from the color attributes and try to remap the effect that you want onto the cloner. So that you can see that everything in the black area will be yeah plants, and everything in the white area will have nothing. So this is matched perfectly with the noise. And then the thing is when it appear, it's very it's cut. It's there's not no interpolation. Just appear from to one frame. What I had to do to just make a smooth transition from nothing to the growth was to you just use a delay effector that we just had as a real nice transition. I'm sorry, just not applied. Yeah, that will work now. Yeah. Now you can see the growth of my plants. And for the last effect, the only thing I did was to just use a random effector with a noise to it, just to add a little animation. I'm sorry. Like that, we can have a subtle movement into the growth that make the scene more organic and more dynamic to watch.
Yeah, really cool.
So that was the one of the there was three main setup to the film, and that was the main two. And the last setup that I didn't prepare, but we're going to have some fun now because some bug will appear. So it's that effect. So the liquid simulation. This one. So I really struggle to have that setup. That took me maybe 4 days to figure it out because I tried everything. I tried so many setup, so many setup. Like I try Houdini, I try RealFlow, I try every little thing in Cinema 4D, and nothing was quite usable, because the thing is that thing is present on every shot. So I just needed to have something to copy paste into another scene and just it work with another direction. And that was not the setup is not that complicated, but the process to arrive to that setup was complicated.
Yeah,
So
that's most of the time the problem, you know. When you
yeah,
have the
yeah.
solution, it's simple, but you struggle trying to find that solution.
Yeah. I was so mad. I was so mad. The funny thing is, 4 days into researching the setup, and one night it was maybe 3 a.m. I was tired, I was pissed, and I went to bed, and I fuck, I don't have this setup. I don't know how I'm going to do the film now, because he's the main hero of the film, and I cannot just do environmental render. So so I just lay down on my bed, and I thought about precedent experience that I did with spline, with spline wrap, and it appeared like that. In 5 minutes, I find the setup that took me 4 days to to actually search. So for that setup, yeah. So there's more step, but it's fairly simple too. So I'm going to take a sphere with a very low segmentation, like that, very low poly, and I'm going to deform it with a random effector. I put the random underneath the sphere, deformer to points, noise to an animation, like that. Increase the speed. 250 should be what? 150 should be enough. And then I need to make that sphere move around the scene, just on his own, because I just want to have a shape that move randomly into the scene. So I'm going to take the tag vibrate on the sphere and activate the position. So now, yeah. Now I have my sphere that move around into the scene. Should be enough. Yeah. And then I'm going to use the tracer. Tracer is awesome. It just will take the vertices and just emit a spline just behind it. So you have that. It's not a pretty spline right now because my sphere is do a lot of movement, because maybe I'm going to just come down like that. Yeah, like that would be good. When I have that, the thing that I have to do is just to put a limit to the tracer, because it just traced all the way, and I just need to have a life. So in the limit of the tracer, you can say that from n, it will take 10 units and just die after that. So we'll have that. And from that, I just have to use my best friend, the spline wrap. Same thing of the with the goddess. I'm going just to use a capsule. And then into a spline wrap, I will put the tracer into the spline for having that movement. So now we have that. And with that, we can start to doing some stuff. So to hide the sphere. Yeah, the sphere will be that guy. Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah, with that, I think we're going to be quite good. So if we can see that it's not really pretty, just because there's no interpolation into the tracer. The tracer is, the type is linear with no intermediate point, so it's just linear. So if you make a Bezier spline with a uniform intermediate point, we have something much smoother. Second, with mine, that will help. Now yeah, we have that. And from that, I will hide now the sphere. Make my kind of shape my capsule, because there's no very good shape right now. So I'm going to use the size just let down, just to have kind of a tail. Here's the radius. Now we have that. Maybe you can feel the same kind of movement that I have in my film, because I really started from that shape. And from that, I use the same thing that I used for the goddess, is to use the volume builder. Five, and then the volume matcher. And now we have that kind of organic shape that can move around. and you can add a smoothing or add different effects. Try to play with this with the radius of the capsule to have something much bigger. That so this is my setup to do the organic water simulation. So same thing. I try to not have simulation into my scene, just to keep a good level of control along the way. So that's it, guys, for the breakdown of the film.
Thank you again for sharing everything, and that's really nice to see the message. Keep things simple if you can. Yeah, because it looks complicated, but it's really the best solution, I think, to achieve this kind of effect. So thank you again for sharing.
No, you're welcome. The only thing that you guys should take with you is try just try a lot of things, because everything will not come at the first try. And yeah, you just have to push as far as you can your experiments, and try to go further.
Thank you. If you guys enjoyed the Mehdi's breakdown, please feel free to check all his social medias. You will find everything under the description. Show him some love. And now it's the turn of Andy. Make some noise for Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Andy Dominique. I'm 22 and I'm a motion designer based here in Madagascar. And I've been freelancing here for about 4 or 5 years. And recently I had the chance to work for the Video Copilot Europe tour for the Barcelona edition. And today I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, some breakdown, and some cool advices. And as a bonus, you'll get a cool giveaway at the end of the video, so you can just stay tuned and enjoy that little freebie from us. Okay, so 98% of the shots was made inside of Adobe After Effects and Element 3D. And here are the points that I'm going to talk about. There are a few points that, won't be that complicated to understand. And to handle that in 30 minutes, it's quite hard. So I'm going to just pass by really quick on each single points and not stick too long on every titles. So I'm going to talk about steps to final images, inspiration, and nice tool for sampling them. Copy paste frame principles, like in Element 3D. So many people ask that to me, and I'm going to talk about scene build as well, and how to hack the system. Cool. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to show you the opening I've made for the Barcelona edition. Okay, so nothing is that really complicated. Every single piece of shot was very easy to elaborate. Like I said, 98% was made inside of Element 3D, so you can just reproduce them really easily. So to talk about the first point, which is the steps to final images, My workflow was kind of simple. I just started with the animation of those little titles. Like, it's really simple, really elegant. So I'm not going to show you how to create that kind of text animation. You just have to take the name and surname, add the mask on them, add the position, add some opacity. So really simple, but the steps for the final images was to build them first separately in a composition and export them as a move pre-alpha file, so you can just import them back inside of Premiere Pro and compose them on top of every single shots. That's all for the steps of final images. After I made the title sequences, the title animations, I just composed like some cool shots instead of the scene setup. So every time you are working with Element 3D, you have to go and go inside of this scene setup. So basically, inside of the scene setup, you're going to compose the entire 3D shot that you're going to create, and basically you will compose a shot like inside of 3D software here. So you can just add some cubes, duplicate things, add position, add rotation if you want to. You can do pretty much anything you want here, and you can click OK. So by clicking OK, your scene will be appearing inside of the After Effects composition. So you can now create a camera and take the camera tool and orbit around, and as you can see, you might ask now, what are the utilities of those options? Well, those options are useful to animate your objects, add some attributes like scattering, etc, etc. So you can play around with them. I'm not going to explain that, but I think there are many tutorials on YouTube to learn how to handle Element 3D for the beginners. But today I'm going to show you how I've created the first shot here, with the mountains and the buildings at the back. But before that, I'm going to talk about inspiration and nice tool for assets. If you have many assets, sometimes if you work with some images, like random images, I don't know, for example, this one from unplash.com, you can see that it's pretty cool to work like this. You can put your reference here and work, but the problem is once you start clicking in After Effects, your window viewer will just disappear behind the After Effects one. So what you have to do is to use a cool program called PureRef. So PureRef is basically an infinite empty canvas in which you can import any kinds of assets like GIFs, JPEGs, photo, PSD files. I know pretty much any kinds of universal files nowadays can be imported here. And what's cool with that, you can just put that always on top. So you can just right click here and just go to mode, and you have here always on top. So in that way, your PureRef will stay on top of your software, or on top of any running program. Even if you click in here in After Effects, it will stay there. So that's pretty cool. So I think PureRef is free to download, not like really free, but it's on name your own press, I guess. So if you click on download, you can go to pureref.com. You can just check it out and put your own press and download it. It's available for Windows 7 and above, Mac OS X, and Linux. So another cool thing with PureRef is you don't have to download your pictures in your hard drive. So you can just right click here and click on copy the picture from the browser, and just directly go here, right click, and just hit paste, and it will load and download the file inside of PureRef. And so now you can just start building many crazy assets. Like I want this as a reference, so you can copy and paste. It's an infinite canvas, so even if you have tons and tons of pictures, you can just organize them here. You can double click to make them full screen, and you can hold right click and move your mouse to move the whole canvas. I think that will help you to make your references more organized and more visible while you're working. Okay, so about the copy paste frame principles, that's I think really simple. What I mean by copy paste frame principles is like you're keeping the same parameters and the same scene building for every single shot. Like if you had 2 lights for this first shot, you will have 2 lights for this one, and etc. Right? If you had like an atmosphere here, you will replicate this atmosphere on the other shots. Like that's what I called copy paste frame principles. I don't know if that's the correct name, but I call it like that. This is my personal way of working. I don't know if people just follow that same thing, but I am doing quietly the same thing every time. Like the first thing that I do while I'm working with Element 3D is create a new composition and create a new solid, and Element 3D will be applied on that solid. And even if I don't have anything, I will just create 2 lights. So the first light will be an ambient light, and with an intensity of like 70%, just hit OK and just do the same thing for the second light, but this time the light will be a parallel light with 150%. And this depends on you. You can cast the shadow, you can let it just off, but for this time I will cast the shadow. Choose OK. So with that kind of setup, the ambient light will just give the ambient look of the shot, right, in your scene, and the parallel light will simulate like a daylight or any cool emissive light that you're going to use. So I think that's the most important by working with Element 3D. You have to get minimum 2 lights. You can go above that, but below that you can't. Like you can't have just a parallel light and no ambient light, or just an ambient light and no parallel light. But you can duplicate the lights as many times as you want. So you can just drive this around, and this depends on a shot. If you want more lights here and more lights here, you can do it. But don't forget, do not go just below 2 lights. It will help you a lot. Let me take as example this first shot, which is the introduction of the title sequence. Basically, it was really simple. The terrain here was made instead of Cinema 4D, so you can just go here in Cinema 4D. Let's go here to Object and create a landscape. And what we will do is just increase the segments for the depth and the width. So now your landscape is has no more details, and we're good. You don't have to do anything else. So now you can just go to File, Export, and Wavefront OBJ, and you can save it as a landscape or anything you want. And now go back inside of After Effects, and you can now import your thing. So I've imported it inside of this layer, inside of the scene setup. You can just check it out, but here you have it already textured. But let me show you how to import it quickly. Just hit import, just load your thing like this landscape. You can just import it like that. So I'm not going to cover about shading, texturing, etc, etc. There are plenty of tutorials online, so you can just check it out. For some people who asked about the building at the background, I've just used the Metropolitan pack from videocopilot.net, so you can check it out. It's really cool. It's a really cool pack. Just one thing, when you load one object, I advise you to use the Metropolitan, no Athenas, because your scene is relatively simple, but if you're going to import your building, and if your building are really heavy in terms of polygons and vertices. So if you're loading this, and if you're working with Element 3D version 2 and above, just make sure that you're converting your shaders into a physical shader, since Element 3D version 2 is about, has just its own physical shader, but Metropolitan, this Metropolitan pack was released at the version 1.6, so at that date I don't think the physical shader was available already. So advise you to take a little bit of time to go here and change every single slot to physical shader. Probably it won't change that much things, but it will just help you to get closer to I would call it like realism, but like accuracy in your shot. So when everything is well placed and well composed and well prepared, like what I said, the physical shader transformation, what you can do is now work really smartly. Like you can do it, but for some reasons I like to organize my things like this, like separate all the street layouts on one group and having the landscape on another group folder. I'm talking about group folder, not group, sorry. So instead of that group folder, you can put the first plane, and instead of that one, you can import your second plane. And what I like to do is, if you have a third plane, like behind, you can just duplicate that group, and now you have a specific group object, folder object for the third plane. Like that's a little tip to keep your scene setup organized. I don't know guys if you're using it, but I personally do. So basically that's how I made this shot, like how I composed the shot, and that's the copy paste frame principles. Like I will do that step for every single sequence I will make for the rest of the title sequence. Let's break down it quickly. We've got here a gradient ramp applied on the solid, and then after that we've got optical flares, which will give some kind of rays from behind. And then I've got the element 3D file. Sorry, I don't rename the file. You have to, but my organization is really messed up and I have to change it. But anyways, so we've got here the solid containing the element 3D plugin. And then above everything, I've got a spotlight, right? I've got like glow and on adjustment layer. And then I've got like another glow, secondary glow. And on top of them, I've got magic bullet looks, which will help me to quickly color grade or add some tint and cool colors to my shots. So everything composed together, we have this. So another thing, inside of Element 3D, you have to fake a lot of steps. Like you can just do everything really cool, just with accurate things like lights, well positioned, object well positioned. But most of the time you have to fake things. Like for example, this glow behind is the optical flares here. So it's not the light by itself, but it's optical flares, and that just fake this kind of shot, this kind of reflection shot with real light, but the source light won't be that light, but it will be the optical flares. So finally, let's talk about hacking the system. I'm not talking about doing anything illegal, like I'm not going to talk about that, don't worry. But what I mean here is how to go beyond the system and just work faster in Element 3D. There are tons of tips and tricks that I don't know if you know them, but you probably didn't know that, but it will help you out to work faster in E3D. So let's say, for example, let's take this cube. Okay, so instead of this cube, I can just replicate it as a sphere with a certain value. And so I can create a camera here very quick and show you the setup. So basically, let's apply a texture on your cube. So now we've got the cube textured. So it stills really smooth for now, but once you just enable everything like post effects like shadows, if you have a 4K map shadow size like with a simple samples of 16, for example, if you enable ambient occlusions at a high intensity, like I am exaggerating, but just for showing you that it's going to be really choppy like that. So I can also add a depth of field, for example. So go to focus indicator, go to your camera, enable depth of field, just see what's going on here. And we've got here pixel blur, go back to pixel blur. So you can increase your aperture really high, like 200 for example, and now you can see that a scene is really heavy. So to work with that kind of scene maybe a really huge pain, because if you want to animate a camera, for example, you will just move and drag the camera and nothing will update in real time. So the first tip about hacking the system is to go down below here and just go here to render mode, and we've got here full render. You can change the full render to draft. So what draft will do, draft will just disable all the post effects which are really heavy for your scene, like depth of field, any kinds of shadows, ambient occlusion, lighting, and now we can just have this kind of ambient textures like ambient diffuse, and now you can see you can work really smoothly inside of your composition, and that's now that great to see and to look at, but it will help you to animate. For example, I'm going to animate a camera like this, F9. So I'm going to smooth that, bring that here. So now as you can see, it's really fast to navigate. And once you have made everything cool and okay inside of your scene, what you're going to do is to go here into medium and just go to render mode. If you're happy with what you've made, just go to render mode and go full screen now. So everything will be full render, sorry. So everything will be back with the full composition and full quality. So it will become really choppy again, but now you're sure that your animation is okay. And if, for example, you have to change really cool things, like you have to change those to spheres, for example, let's go back to draft for that. Go to scene setup, can hide it, replace that to spheres, which is okay. And sometimes the camera will change, and you have to animate the camera again and make some adjustments on the camera. So the draft mode here will help you a lot to make changes really quickly and to preview basically what you're doing. Okay, you've got also the preview. The preview, with the difference between preview and full render. The preview will, I think, decrease the amount of values of samples for every post effect, things like shadows, to decrease the quality of the shadow, to decrease the quality of ambient occlusion, lighting, etc. So you can choose between full render and preview, and everything will depends on your computer, I think. But for the final render, of course, you have to get to full render. But when you're previewing, you can just go to preview, and if your computer is really choppy as hell, you can just choose draft mode. So that is the first tip to work faster in E3D. The second tip is to do multipass render. Like if you're using a 3D software, you know how to do multipass, but basically what you have to do for doing multipass in E3D, you can do that really easily. What you have to do is rename your first layer, which will be the final, let's call it final render. So you have to duplicate it and now rename it for the first pass, let's say diffuse pass. So now you can hide the final render and go to diffuse pass and go down here to output, and here we've got the show, and instead of that show, here you can choose all the paths that you want to isolate, like just the diffuse. And now you just have the diffuse. You can duplicate it again, have another one like specular, for example, and just go down here. We've got here specular, and you can just do everything like in a standard compositing, like you're doing in Photoshop or After Effects. So that will help you to reduce the render time, because what you can do is render them separately at the end. So let's, for example, isolate the diffuse. I'm going to render just the diffuse, and then after that just the specular. If you have another one, let's say embedded occlusion, and if you have embedded occlusion enabled in your post effects here, what you can do is just go here and choose embedded occlusion. Embedded occlusion. So now you just have embedded occlusion. So anyway, you got the idea here. Just multipass compositing, and at the end you just render that like just diffuse, just the specular, and bring them back inside of your compositing software, so you can just bring back your final image at the end. So this last thing is not about how to, gain some times, but this will show you basically how to get a great render. Like you're looking at it like this, like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's we've got depth of field, we've got great reflection, etc. But for the final render, you can just increase that even more. There are a lot of points that you have to change and enable and disable to get a really decent, really great decent render. So for that, the first thing is to go to the output. Like let's say this is the final image. Let's go to output, and we've got here multi-sampling, and can increase it to 32, and that will depends on your computer. Some computer will handle 32 like mine here. Some will just stick at 8. It depends on the computer, but let's say 32. And you've got super sampling as well. So super sampling is like a smooth above a smooth. Like it will just help you to boost the sampling of the multi-sampling. Alright, so super sampling is only limited to 8, so you can just choose 8, the maximum number. So what you can do as well is to enhance multi-sampling by checking this thing on. That's not it. You also have like FXAA smoothing. So if you're playing video games, you can see that kind of setting in your video games, and that will help you to smooth just to touch the edges, not to get some flickering edges when you're rendering a video, etc. So you can just like say 3, for example. I don't know if that's too much. And the final thing to do is uncheck compressed textures. That will just help you to get full and compressed quality of textures. And I think that's it. So now you're ready to render. Alright, so I know I am going really fast, but 30 minutes is not enough. But now it's freebie time. So many people asked me how to create this kind of wet asphalt thing instead of Element 3D only. So, but I think I won't have the time to explain it to you from A to Z. So I'm going to give you something like a cool pack. Thank me later, but we've got this 2-pack: MTC Live Freebie Materials and MTC Live Freebies Volume 1 models. I will give you as in form of installer like this, like with great if you're using Windows. So if you don't have Windows, you can just use the manual installation. But let me show you really quickly how to use it. Go to scene setup, you see it won't be complicated. Create a new plane, and the pack is available on Materials, Andy, Dominique, Craig, MTC Live freebies, and those are the packs. So you just have to bring that onto your shot here, onto your plane here. So it will help you to create this kind of wet asphalt. Just turn off the draft textures here, and now you can see that you have it. The only thing that you have to do is just click on plane model, go to UV, and increase the UV. Even if your scene is not that good, not that big, but increase the UVs for some reason. And if you want less or more reflection, you can just play with the normal bump here. So you can increase the bump or reduce the bump. So as you can see, you've got the wetty asphalt thing. Another and the last thing is, for example, you want it to be reflective on what's above it. What you have to do is just click on the plane or the object, go here on this reflect mode and choose mirror surface for any planar object and spherical surfaces for any spherical surfaces. So if you choose mirror surface, you can just now create an object above it, and if you want to see it, as you can see, you have the object above it reflecting with what's below. So that's really great. So you just have to play with this normal bump to have less or more details, and you can also play with the glossiness and everything, but I have just already made everything cool, so you don't have to worry about many kinds of glossiness values, etc. Just play with the normal bump. This is also interactive with your background, so if you see and change the background, as you can see, it's really cool, and it's really great to see. Alright, so you can try them out one by one. I know it's only 4, but I guess with just those 4 things you can change the settings and create something more interesting for your future things. Okay, so here we've got the asphalt alternatives. You can try them out. If you have installed the if you have installed this models pack, you can find them on Andy, Dominique, Craig, MTC Live freebies. What's the difference between materials and objects? So the objects containing pre-made and ready-to-go options. Like I have, for example, already add the mirror surface option. I have already duplicated the UVs, tiled the UVs, etc. So the model will just help you to just create a scene really quickly without worrying about anything else. So here is a cool scene I've made with using pack. You can just get inspiration on it, but it's really simple and easy to use. We've got reflections of what's above it, like this. I probably will be doing a tutorial on how to create these kind of shots. Alright guys, so that's all for my part. I know that I didn't explain things really in depth, but hey, I hope the little presentation I've made helped you to understand more about things like how to work faster, etc. So if you have any questions, you can just ask them below in the comments. I'm going to answer. And that's all guys. Bye.